Bismillah. Welcome back, Zoo Crew. So, I guess today we can talk about the dark side of credit because we've talked a lot about credit and like the benefits of it, but really all of the bad side should be discussed as well, right? So, if we think about it, back in the day, if you wanted to buy a house, if you wanted to buy a car, if you wanted to go to school, you paid it for it in full in cash, right? There was none of this buy now, pay later. And as time has gone on and credit has become more available for people, we're noticing the shift of owning things to just paying to use things, right? Whether that is streaming services instead of owning CDs and DVDs or other kind of subscriptions, right? Like back in the day, you would buy Microsoft Office once and you'd own it for life. Now you pay a subscription, whether that's monthly or yearly. And the issue with all of this is the prices for things will continue to rise, right? So credit also, or debt rather, plays a huge role in why there's so much inflation right now because everyone is just kicking the can down the road, right? So a good example of this would be the housing market and COVID. So let's say right now, if you have to buy a house, you have to buy it in cash and there's no concept of a mortgage. Prices will stay relatively affordable, right? Now, when we factor in a mortgage, people are putting 25 to 5% down, they're buying a house and they're financing the rest, right? So they're technically overpaying for this house. And this became much more evident when COVID hit, when we saw interest rates drop to like 1% or 2%, right? So now a house that was only worth 450,000 gets, or like 400,000, which is still crazy. Like technically these townhomes are only worth 250,000, like if we're talking about the intrinsic value, right? These homes ended up selling for like 500,000 to 600,000 and the values never changed, right? It's not like somebody went and renovated these houses and now they're just like a much nicer house. It's just that you were able to borrow more money because the interest rate dropped, right? And all this did was inflate the entire market. And now when we have supply chain issues and material costs goes up, if like drywall was $1 and now somebody has to buy it for $20, guess what? That cost gets passed down to the consumer, right? And these prices will never come down. Like you're never going to see Home Depot drop their price on electrical wire or tiles or any of these things, right? And really, if we didn't have this whole debt system, you wouldn't see such massive rises in the prices of things, right? And really, inflation is the silent tax. Inflation is how the government steals your wealth without you realizing what they're doing. And we've seen this happen time and time again in history, right? So, really, this is like a huge topic, and I'm tired, and I'm like going through a lot of weird shit right now. So once I'm done this 90-day journey, I'm going to spend some time and construct some videos with more thought behind them. Whereas right now, like I just come and hit record and I just try and get it done, you know? There's some days where it's like, yeah, I have some good videos or like some good thoughts that just kind of come out from the top of my mind without any planning. But really, like if I want this page to grow, I have to spend some more time before I hit record, right? And I guess the best example of that would be Alex Hermosi. And there's a video where he's kind of explaining this whole notion where he's like, yeah, like I'll spend like 20 hours preparing before I even hit record, right? Whereas most people will just maybe spend 5-10 minutes, or they'll be like me and they'll just come hit record, and then they spend more time in the editing and like posting and scheduling than actually creating the content, right? And look, don't get me wrong, with the way YouTube is right now, there's tons of creators like myself who are just coming and sharing their thoughts in a somewhat cohesive manner, whether they're talking about well, generally they're talking about their own life experiences, right? But the thing is, like, a lot of these larger topics, like when we're talking about credit, we're talking about debt, we're talking about assets, investing, politics, history, philosophy, I think these topics deserve some more thought being put into it, right? Rather than just me coming and talking. And look, don't get me wrong, like, these are topics that you could drop me on a stage somewhere and I could give like a 3-day lecture or like seminar about like investing, real estate, financial literacy, etc., credit and whatnot, without really doing any prep, just because this is what my whole world has been, and I've spent so much time just consuming information about this and teaching myself about this. Because look, like, as much as I've like learned by doing or through like the experience that I've had or been exposed to, most of this knowledge came from me just being ADHD and going down rabbit holes, right? So from the time I dropped out of university until probably 2022, I would not be able to sleep, and then I would get like a thought or an idea, and then I would just go down the fucking YouTube rabbit hole, right? And really, like, before AI came in, this is how I would spend most of my nights or most of my evenings. Like, I would learn about some topic and then I would get intrigued, and now I'm spending like hours and hours learning about it and then like mastering it, right? And especially like with real estate, like, I analyzed God knows how many deals, built so many different spreadsheets, to the point where the whole macro of real estate investing, like, now I can look at a building and like know how much it's worth, how much income it's producing, or if it's a good deal or not, right? And even like, so like, outside of that, I guess I do have to attest some of this to my dad, just given that whenever I had spare time, I was dragged along to various different businesses, and then meetings with lawyers, accountants, politicians, being in rooms that most people wouldn't be like aware of or have access to, right? Especially from a young age, even like contractors and whatnot. And then again, like, where I went to school, like high school, I got access, or I got introduced to a whole different world, right? So I've kind of lived a very unique life in that sense, where I've seen multiple sides of how people live, whether that's like the top 0.1%, whether that's like immigrants coming here with nothing and barely speaking the language, or just regular people, like everyday citizens. So I have a truly unique appreciation for life. And I guess it lets me look at life through different lenses and kind of be more understanding of most people's situations. And it's easier said than done. And I guess I still do have a lot to learn, and especially when it comes to people and relationships. Especially because that one video that I made a few days back talking about like people on their deathbed regret not taking risks. So I took a huge risk again. I went to go see Mina, and I really didn't expect anything. Like, I went as like, okay, let me do like this final goodbye. Like, let me give her this bouquet of flowers so at least she has like one nice memory of me, because I didn't like how things ended. And yeah, like, we're slowly talking here and there, and I guess like she's kind of testing the waters and like testing me to see like if I am actually stable and grounded. And then again, like, I caught myself in a whirlwind of emotions. Mind you, I guess I've been somewhat emotional for the last few days, given that I wasn't expecting any of this. And even now, like, I have no idea what any of this means, but I'm trying to live in the moment. I'm trying to stay present and not think about the past and not worry about the future. So, yeah, I mean, this video started as one thing and ended as something else, which is exactly why I'm saying when I'm talking about things like credit or debt or investing or finance, I need to have a bit more structure in place just so I don't go completely off topic and then ramble about random things. But I guess the lesson of today is don't overthink things, don't overcomplicate things, and find things that you're curious about and research them and be willing to learn about things or everything. So there is a saying that it's like higher education will make you a living, self-education will make you wealthy or something like that. And really, I think that is the key to having a fulfilling life or a meaningful life. You build your own curriculum, figure out what it is you want to learn about, and then go and teach yourself, you know? Because at the end of the day, like, even if you're sitting in a classroom and you're listening to this lecture, like regurgitated textbook, you can do that yourself and you can find pretty much all the information you want or need online in Google, YouTube, but really in books. Because so, like, look, there's first-hand information, there's second-hand information, and then there's third-hand information. So third-hand information is you hear something from someone who learned it from someone who learned it from a book, right? Second-hand information is you learned it from a book or a video or a professor or any of these kind of things. And then first-hand information is stuff that you learned on your own, that you kind of figured out by doing, right? Trial by fire, through your own experiences, through a mentor, but really you learn by doing, right? And when it comes to business, this is not something you can learn in a book. You can't learn business in a classroom. And to be honest, I don't even think it's something you can learn. It's something you're just born with. You're either born with it or you're not born with it. And for the people who are born with it, it's something you have to cultivate throughout your life, right? And you can see so many examples in your own life probably of kids who studied business in university from a professor who's never owned a business, or people with MBAs who, again, have never run a business. And these people don't realize even that university is essentially a factory for workers. So these people get MBAs or business degrees and then they go and work in a big corporation and like their whole goal is to climb up the ladder, right? And I really don't understand how you can have somebody call themselves a business professor without ever having run their own business. And for those of you who have never tried to start a business, do not judge entrepreneurs, because starting a business is one of the hardest things you will ever do in your life. And having a business become successful, it's even harder than that, right? So in my life, I've lost count of how many different businesses I've tried to start and watched fail. But this is the thing. Like, I've tried and failed at more things than most people will ever attempt to do in their life, right? And sure, maybe all of these businesses didn't work out, but I learned valuable lessons along the way. And that, like, insight and information I learned, I apply into the next business, right? So it's like you're playing a video game and you're learning the mechanics of the game. And as you progress through the levels, you get better at the game until you kind of find something that works, right? And there's a lot of examples like this in the world, even like KFC, right? This guy started when he was super old. Like, there's so many entrepreneurs that got their lucky break way down the road. but they would have never hit that lucky break if they gave up after their first failed business, after their fifth failed business, right? Sure, there are some people, they start a business and they're successful right off the bat, but the world has changed. You're competing with so many more people and so many more businesses now because it's easier than ever to start a business, right? So it is the golden age of entrepreneurship, and there is so many opportunities, but the real thing that will set you apart is your skill level, right? So the thing is, like, when there's a lot of competition, it means there's a lot of demand. It means you have to just be like 10 times better than you would have had to be if you started 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, etc., right? And especially in the world of real estate as a business is getting harder and harder to be successful as a real estate investor. First of all, because there's no real good deals and the market is constantly being manipulated, and then it's become so trendy that every single person like wants to be a real estate investor, right? And most people should not be real estate investors. Most people should not own real estate, and most people should not own a business. Like 80% of the population is not cut out for it. They're better off being like contractors, so like self-employed, or just working a job, because it's not that easy, and it's a high risk, high reward. And maybe 1 month you'll make 100K, and then like for the next 6 months you won't make anything, and then you'll make like 200K, and then you won't make anything, and then you make like 5K, right? Like it's very up and down, and there's no predictability. So if you are somebody who needs predictability in your life, if you need to feel this sense of control, entrepreneurship is not for you. And it is like a trendy thing, and it's like the modern day rock star or whatever because of social media and because of how accessible it is. But like 20 years ago, if you told somebody you're an entrepreneur, that was synonymous with like failure. You tell somebody, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, they automatically just think you're a dumbass or like you failed in life, right? It's only recently with like social media and all of these like online gurus that it's become trendy. And the sad part about this is most of these online gurus are frauds, right? They're all running these like info businesses or like digital businesses, and their whole money model is like MLM or scamming people and like inducting them into a cult. So, yeah, I really did not know what I was going to talk about today. And I thought this was going to be like a super short video, but here we are at almost 20 minutes. So it is what it is, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.